Hey all, Andy here. Happy Thursday. Helping you build a career you love. Today we're going to be talking about how to be happy in your job search. Because job searching stinks. It's lonely. It's hard to be motivated. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk to you about why you get that way to begin with. We're going to talk about how I want you to look at your job search, how to know whether what you're doing is going to lead you in the right direction, basically what the health of your job search is. I'm going to give you some tactics to get more control of your job search so you can feel more in control and hopefully increase your happiness. So I've got a lot of good stuff to unpack for you today. If you're here with me live, get in the chat and say hi. Put some question marks in front of your questions because we're going to go to a Q&A when we're done. I always want to know where you're watching from, who you are, what you need, and how you're feeling. So get in, say hi. I got a lot to cover today. And I always like to say, hey, look at who's on the list. Right at the top, Amelia. Hey, Mom, how you doing? Great to see you. Charlene Crocker, my LinkedIn friend. How are you? Dana, what's up? Good to see you. I see a whole bunch of questions. Baby girl, Cherry, my Canadian friend, how are you? Kara's always got my back. Daisha from around the block. Adam Stark from across the pond. Word Dog Toronto from the other side of North America. Okay, great to have everybody. What's today all about? I know job searching is rough. It's especially rough when you're not sure what you're doing or you're getting bad advice from well-meaning friends and family members and colleagues and all that good stuff. I'd love to know from you right away what your biggest frustration is with your job search. And while you're typing that in, I want to talk about, well, forget the job search for a second. Well, I don't want you to forget the job search. I want you to tell me what's frustrating you. But think about, if you forget the job search for a second, why do we get frustrated in general? There's usually a couple or three things, depending on how you want to split them up. Expectations of any kind, even if they're good ones of a well-adjusted, evolved adult, we get frustrated because the world doesn't operate the way we think it ought to, even if we're correct. It's still frustrating, or maybe we don't feel in control of the situation. Maybe there's a little bit of overlap there. And I also think one of the really big reasons we get frustrated is because our success metrics in anything we do are not dialed in correctly, meaning we don't have the right perspective of what's actually happening. And dare I say, maybe not even attaching the proper meaning to what we're experiencing at the moment, right? I always say experience is not what happens to you, but the meaning you attach to what happens to you. And if your success metrics aren't dialed in correctly, we have a way of looking at things the wrong way. We place our attention on the things that we shouldn't be if we want to maintain the proper perspective. And I as a little example from my life, and I think I've talked about this a time or two, not a lot. I don't talk about this a lot, but I know I've mentioned it a time or two over the years. But back in 2016, I was launching or offering my first online training product. So I was, for the very first time in my life, having worked, almost 30 years, had never sold a product to a consumer. I'd always sold my services to other businesses. And so I wanted to become a trainer in this fashion and offer individual coaching and online training programs to people like yourself that would consume it and grow their careers or find their jobs or use it however it best serve them. And I finally did that in November of 2016. And I will admit that I had an idea, or at least an expectation, of how many people I was hoping would buy the product based on how many people were following me and opening up my emails and engaging with me on the internets and all that good stuff. And wouldn't you know it, some very small fraction of what I was hoping the number would be that would enroll in the program actually did. And if I was obsessed over how many people bought that program or how much revenue it generated for my company, I assure you, if those are my success metrics, you and I would not be having this conversation right now. You'd be watching some other career coach, my guess, is because I would have thrown in the towel. But I didn't do that, or maybe I did that for a few seconds, but I didn't dwell on that. My focus was, I launched a product for the very first time. I sold something to a consumer who was going to benefit. The first person who bought it, some nice lady, her name was Leslie. Right? And version 1.0 of that product was up, and version 1.0 of my true business, because you're not in business unless you're making money and serving customers, was up and running. And even though I'd been working for a year and a half on the runway to get that product launched, now it was official. And those were my success factors, and that's stuff I could control and stuff I could work with. And your job search is a lot like that. And why do we tend to get frustrated in the job search? I'm going to look at the chat here in a second. But I know it's because at the grandest level, if you're not sure what direction you want to take your career, that can be very overwhelming, make you very stuck, right? I don't know if I'm in the right job. What career should I change to? And it becomes very, very difficult to know how to choose all that. And then let's say you do know that. The second thing is those actions you're going to take to actually find that job in the right company, the steps you're going to go through. Do you know those? Do you actually know the proper steps to take? And then even if you are taking the right steps, are the results that you're expecting, are you actually realizing them? So as if I should get the job interview because I'm qualified. I should get the job because I'm qualified. I should get paid this because that's what I'm used to getting paid. Or all of the opportunities that are available in this world that is apparently totally limited are what's available, and I can see that's publicized on the internet, those open positions, right? And I if I want to get those jobs, I have to apply through the applicant trashing system, through the corporate portal, because it says on the corporate website, this is the only way we receive or will entertain your submission. And then it's I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I don't have a degree, or the degree I have isn't the right one. And on this goes. And we have these assumptions about the way things work. We have these expectations about the results we think we're going to attain. On a daily basis, I get emails or direct messages from anywhere on the internet of any of my social media platforms that talk about the level of frustration. I got one the other day. And this one struck me, and I responded directly to this person who said, yeah, I feel like I've been at this for 2 years, and I feel like I've hit the wall. I mean, paraphrasing here, but I feel like I've hit the wall, and I've applied to over 2,000 jobs. I'm not sure what to do. Reading this email, and I'm feeling this guy's frustration because I know it to be true. And I responded to him and tried to give him some insight and some motivation from people who'd been successful, who had his similar challenges. But when you feel like I've tried everything, no, you've tried everything that you know. And maybe you've tried everything that somebody's taught you or somebody else has taught you, but you haven't actually tried everything. And I could say the same thing about my business. Those dang ads. I've tried for years to figure that stuff out. I still haven't been able to, but I refuse to say I've tried everything because I simply haven't. So how do we get it back? Well, it starts with you got to control the controllables. You got to think without limits. And whatever you do, trade those expectations for appreciation of what is truly in front of you, which is nothing more than an opportunity. It really is. Your job search is nothing more than an opportunity to what? Discover new companies or more about discover companies you don't know or discover more about companies that you're familiar with, to learn more, to meet people you haven't had the chance to meet with and maybe develop relationships with them and build skills you don't have. Or if you have them, practice them to make them better at your communication, at your writing, at your networking, right? At being helpful to others. And so it really starts there. So you got to get in that kind of mindset. And all right, so tough love Andy's gone. Gentle Andy's back because we're gonna talk about, well, how do we do all this? So the first part is I wanna get a running start with, what is it that I want you to think about as opposed to not think about? And this really goes to just perspective and mindset. So let's do a few quick do this, not that, because doing this is going to get you more in control and you're going to be able to operate without limits. No one's going to be able to stop you. All right, there's an endless pile of opportunities out there. And to steal a lyric from Billy Joel, who I love, is there's an employer out there. There's probably very many employers out there who love you just the way you are. You don't need to change. And so, I always say there's nothing wrong with you. It's the marketing of you. Well, today we're talking about positivity and motivation, and a lot of that and your happiness as it relates to you has to do with what it is you're doing. And you've heard me talk about, as we talk to the imposter syndrome folks out there, right? If you want to change the way you think about something, and if you want to change your thoughts, you don't change your thinking, you change your doing. All right, so the changing and the doing starts now with a little of this and that. All right, so a lot of times people think in terms of what's available, what can I see, who has an open position. That's limited thinking, right? Because that's only what you can see. And I've taught you based on years and years of surveys that only 20% of job openings are actually publicized, right? Those are pretty consistent numbers year over year from HR folks and recruiters and hiring officials who fill out the surveys. So I want you to think about companies in terms of driving your job search. I want you to think about this companies and not this. Publicly cited open positions. There's nothing wrong with publicly cited open positions other than everybody else is looking at them, shoving their resume into the applicant trashing system, overflowing it for overwhelmed recruiters who can't get through all of them and don't anyway. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to just think about your search in terms of the company you want to join. What do I always say? You join a company, you don't join a job. You join the right one. You don't have the job you joined for very long. I mean that in a good way, right? Good companies know how to elevate their people. Think in terms of where you want to work, not what's available that you can see, okay? And then the second part of it is I also want you to think as it relates to publicized opportunities is I want you to think in terms of people, not publicized opportunities. Okay, so I want you to think about if I'm going to conduct my search, I want to think in terms of people. Because why? Because people give you a job. A computer system doesn't give you a job, right? People help you get to people who can give you a job. Friends refer you to friends who can give you a job. Friends refer you to their boss who can give you a job, right? People have the data. The computer doesn't have the data, as odd as that sounds, right? So think about the people, not about publicized opportunities. And the next thing that I want you to think about is I want you to, instead of the applicant tracking system, I want you to think in terms of sending thoughtful messages to people, right? Actual humans, not the robots, not the applicant trashing system. This is filled with constraints. It's set with tolerances that is likely not to let you through, not even be seen. So I want you to think in terms of thoughtful messages. This you can control, this you cannot control. Sure, you can control your resume and how good it looks and how many of the keywords it matches, the job description or whatever, but you still only have a 3% chance of being seen on average, not even getting an interview. But you have a much greater chance if you've crafted a thoughtful email of having somebody respond. So these are areas where you can start to think about and just mechanically start to think about, I want to stay out of the applicant tracking system. I don't mind you looking at open positions, but that's not the place I would really start my job search. Open positions and what's available to me gives you data, and it's a great idea to research that to figure out which companies are hiring, because I might see some open positions for salespeople, even though I'm an engineer, but that's probably a good indication that that organization is hiring and is going to need engineers if they're a product company or a systems company or something like that. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to start thinking in those terms. And then before I get into some of the mechanics and metrics, I do want to take a look at some of these frustrations, and Kara's telling me it starts around 10:53, but I want to figure out who that is. It says common frustrations, a slowness with the process. Who said that? Let's see. Let's see. Where do I get to? Hang tight, folks. I want to get to. You guys are filling in the chat. I love it. All right, wait. Rachel Emily, I see you. Let me see if I can just pull up some of these very quickly. And Biggest challenge, overwhelm, a vegan for peace, overwhelm in the range of activities to do. Right, okay, so we're gonna address the number of activities and which ones. And hey, Lisa Day and Balaji, what's up? Rachel, biggest frustration, not getting interviews with hiring managers. When you say we should be getting one interview for every 5 to 10, I did say that. 3 days that include virtual coffee. All right, so we got a question there. Stephen Green, derailers to job search momentum, lots of distractions and priorities at this time of year. Okay, what are we noticing here? Things we cannot control. Negative feedback after hard work. Tom Phillips, how to represent. Okay, we got some questions here. Biggest challenge, Terry. Biggest challenge is narrowing the jobs to apply for. I throw out a very large net and hope I catch some. Okay, hope is not a strategy. Terry, come on. I taught you better than that. All right, we'll get to that. Many do-overs. Finding positions that are a good fit has been challenging. All right, I love this. I love this. Okay, what we're noticing here, and I think Kara said there was something somewhere in the chat about the slowness of the process. What are we noticing about virtually everything that I just called out there from the chat? These are things that are not within your control. And so a lot of times what's happening, we place our attention on things we cannot control. And what do I often say to you? When you send a message, if somebody doesn't get back to you, move on, right? You can control how well you craft the message, maybe how effectively you target the person you're sending the message to. But even if you are the perfect person for the job and there's a boss out there that you've reached out to that you're perfect for what that boss does, there's no guarantee that that boss will reach back to you for any number of reasons, none of which have anything to do with you. So here again, we're placing our attention on things we cannot control. So a lot of times what happens is that will increase our unhappiness and make us feel frustrated. All right, so what is it that we can control? And one of the things that I want you to do, and I'm really glad that after all that prepping, I forgot one card that I needed to draw for you, so we're going to have to do this on the fly. But one of the things that I want you to do is I have a job search challenge out there. I'm about to give you a 2-minute version of that job search challenge. I have a 30-minute free version that I'm sure when this is all recorded, it'll be up there in the card or whatever. There's a 30-minute free version of what I'm about to share with you in 2 minutes here on my YouTube channel, and I have a 7-hour premium version if you really want to be a go-getter. But one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to run your job search based on only things you can control. And there are 3 important elements to doing this. And my job search challenge is a quota-driven way to drive each day that you're searching, whether you're searching all day or whether you're searching for a portion of the day. But all of these activities are 100% in your control. And if you do these activities, statistically, I have data for years on end that show me that this is a better way for you to find your job, because the probability of finding your job this way is going to be substantially higher than the traditional ways that people are used to finding their jobs. So all it entails is I want you to every day identify 3 new, that's new, not chasing, 3 companies a day, and then within each company, identify a person within each company. It's going to give you 3 more people that you are now going to target with a thoughtful message. And if every single day you're sending just 3 itty-bitty emails that I actually will give you the free templates for, if you send those out each day, that's proactively, no one can stop you from researching companies and identifying new organizations. Right? No one can stop you from identifying people. You can use LinkedIn, or if you're in my job search coaching program, we'll teach you how to use Google Boolean to break the LinkedIn database and any other database you want to try to find people and profiles that fit who you are looking for. Or you could find a teammate, or you could find a recruiter, or you could find a friend who could refer you to the recruiter or the boss or a person on the team that you might be working, or anybody in that company that will get you inside there, okay? So 3 people a day, and then 3 thoughtful messages. That's 3 direct emails, or if you want to, you could use LinkedIn for that too. I prefer email. But if you do this each day, every single week, that means you will have reached out to 15 different companies. This is 100% in your control, this is 100% in your control, and this is 100% in your control. And if you want to know how healthy your job search is at any moment in time, it is not how many interviews you've got from the applicant tracking system, right? Where you've shoved your resume in there. These are the metrics that I want you to look at. How many companies have I identified? How many people have I reached out to? How many relationships have I developed? A relationship could be, hey, Andy, thank you for the email. Yes, I am on that team. I'm happy to exchange and give you insight into how much I love working for my company, my boss, and everything I get to do. It could be, hey, let me get you over to. It could be anything of any kind that you consider some kind of connection where you now feel comfortable communicating with that person. How many emails? That's thoughtful emails. That's not, hey, I sent you this email last week. I'm still interested in talking. No, I'm talking about initial send-outs in email form, whether your resume was attached or a cover letter was attached, or maybe it was just an opener, but some kind of initiative, an email that initiates a connection. It could be directly to a boss, in which case you'd send your cover letter and your resume. It could be to a teammate, in which case you just might want to direct message them on LinkedIn. Any of that. And then how many interviews have I actually gotten? That's it. All of these 4 at the top are generally in your control, okay? Because one leads to another. This leads to this, right? These emails that you send to these people are going to lead to these relationships. So the relationship itself and the interviews itself are your primary goals. They're lagging indicators. So what do I often say, right? Success has its own timetable. If you keep at it, you'll be there when it decides to show up, right? Your success metrics should not be, did I get a job offer? That's your ultimate goal. But the metrics you want to make, that you want to monitor along the way, are going to give you an indication of if you're doing the right things. Because if you're not taking the right steps or doing the right acts, you won't be able to know that until you look at metrics like this to determine what's actually happening. So I think Rachel said, well, I'm not getting the interviews. Okay, well, there's a 8-step troubleshooting process to determine between the time you send a message and the person doesn't respond, there's 8 or 9 things that can be wrong. You have to look at the data, look at your template, look at who you're sending it to, all of that good stuff to determine what is the most likely thing that's wrong. You can't do that unless you have some sense of what's actually happening, and your feeling about what's going on is not usually very accurate because you're not highly trained in this particular activity. So think about that. And I'm going to actually show you a real live written case study that somebody sent me about how all this works. Okay, so formula number 1 and metrics, the metrics I want you to manage is do 3 companies a day, 3 people each day. That's 3 individual people. They could be at those companies or getting you in the direction of those companies. But I want you to, if you want to become strict and adhere to your quotas, I assure you, do this like brushing your teeth. And then 3 thoughtful messages. You do this day in and day out. Think about what you're going to have in 2 weeks. You're going to have 30, it's only if you do this Monday through Friday, you're going to have 30 companies that you reached out to. And statistically, and depending on your level, every 7 messages that you send should result in an interview, not a response, an actual interview. Okay, so that's if you're doing it right. Okay, so that's the first step. Now, I've got a little bit of a bonus tip that I want to give you a better idea of how to come over that feeling stuck about your lack of direction. But before I do that, I want to take a sip of this tea, and I would love it if you actually are enjoying this to hit the like button, share this, make sure you're subscribed to the station. There's a lot of people who need help, and I send out videos every Tuesday morning. Every Thursday I show up for live shows. I'm here and available and accessible. So I do hope you are enjoying this. And now I want to give you a tip that I actually gave members of my job search coaching program I don't know, a couple of months ago. And I was finding that there were a lot of, and this does not only apply to senior people, but there were a lot of one-to-one coaching I have 2 to 3 coaching sessions every day. So I have, let's say, 10, 12, 15 a week in, week out, usually with individuals, so different people. Sometimes folks are repeat visitors with me, but generally speaking, one session with me is usually enough, and it's really going to help you get the results that you want. And what I was noticing, and I think this was probably back in December, I had this like 2-week stretch where there were a lot of these senior people who were very confused about what route to take, and they weren't sure the steps to figure out the route. And I want to give you these steps that are a variation of the job search challenge, where we insert a few intermediate steps to help you triangulate the direction. All right, so first step is if you're having trouble determining your route, and I'm not talking about I want to make a wholesale career change here, like I'm Andy IT guy, I want to become Andy executive recruiter. That is a larger scale, self-awareness, evaluation, research, 12-step process where you figure that out. I'm talking about I'm a senior person that could do a number of things, and I'm not sure if I want to go to these types of companies or those types of companies or do these kind of roles or those kind of roles, and it's a little confusing because I can do a lot of things, and just because you can doesn't mean you should or doesn't mean you'll like it. So in those cases, I want you to identify companies. That's the first thing, except that as you're identifying the organizations, so instead of just identifying companies where the job search challenge in its pristine form is great for somebody who wants to change companies but not make wholesale changes to their actual job, but somebody who might want to make changes to their job but stay generally in their space has to do a little bit more. Then what I want you to do is I want you to segment the companies. And I want you to segment the companies based on a couple things. You can do it by sector, market, or industry, whatever term you want to use there. And I'll give you an example here in a second. The solution, the product, or the service. So let me give you an example. One of those women I was coaching, very high-powered, very smart, very senior, was actually a surgeon, a doctor, like MD. And she now works for a technology company and does AI work. And she is looking at considering a career path for herself and wanted my help trying to figure out the possibilities. Now, that person, she could go after a tech company. She could go after a tech company in the healthcare space, but then healthcare in and of itself has different genres or subsectors, so to speak, and she could look at payers, providers. She could look at diagnostic companies, right? She could look at research companies. There's a number of different variations that she could look at. And then there's different solution lines that she could look at. Or maybe you're somebody else who isn't sure if you're not quite sure of the industry you want to work at, but maybe you have a different solution where that's an area of expertise. Maybe you're a CRM guru or an SFA guru, or you have some type of technology platform that you specialize in, or whatever it is. That can be a different solution line. Or it could be, well, I want to look at a technology product. I want to look at a researching service. I want to look at whatever. Now, her resume in this case, or any case, is going to be tailored for the primary skill sets that she offers and tells a story using career highlights and a career profile that center in the prospective employers on the value she offers, which usually is in alignment to what it is they expect her to do on the job. Except she has to figure out which path she wants to go, and she also wants to figure out which of these company types is going to be most receptive to somebody of my background, right? She doesn't know that yet, and she's trying to triangulate this. And what do I always say to you? You don't get it until you get into it, which means she's got to test first before she does anything at a deep, deep level. So before she tries to pursue many companies in one subsector, it's better for her to know if that subsector has an appetite for her with her background or her based on her resume. So you want to segment them. So you want to make some groupings. Let's say you make 3 to 5. I mean, you can have as many or as few as you want. Then what I want you to do is I want you to start looking at those companies. I want you to identify the likely unit within the company where they would be the most probable group to want your services based on the skills you offer and the value you'll contribute. Because not everybody is going to have the position she might want, meaning the functions that she wants to handle, not the title, because we don't know what the title is yet. Where is it in that company? In this product company, it sits over in the product development side. In this company, which is a services company, it sits as a subject matter expert in the whatever group, right? So it's not always cookie cutter. So you don't always easily know who the boss is or where the group is that likely needs you and your background to come in and help them. So you need to do some research. So there's a researching step. Then as you start to gather that information, you want to get the primary target within those different sectors or segments, I should say. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you know who the probable group is within each of those sectors or company segment types that you've identified. And then what you do is instead of just starting to blindly email bosses and things of that nature, I want you to take a cross section. So think in terms of 5 columns of different kinds. So for her, maybe there's a tech company or tech healthcare. Maybe it's tech healthcare on the hospital side. Maybe it's researching. Maybe it's diagnostics. Maybe it's whatever. So instead of going deep on one of those columns or deep on those companies, what I wanted her to do was take a sliver across. Maybe take 25 companies, 5 across, or 50 companies, 10 across each of the different columns, so to speak, and then do a sampling. Use the boss hunting technique. If you don't know what that is, you can grab it. The templates, they're on my YouTube channel. It's free. You can send direct cover letters and your resume to recruiters. I don't care how you do, what you do. Find somebody in those organizations, preferably somebody in the group you want to join, and then send. And your goal is what? Not to get a response, it's to get data. Yes, data comes in the form of response, but your attention should be, I'm sending out 25 emails this week with the sole purpose of figuring out which route I should take. That's it. That's your goal. That's where your focus should be. Then what's going to happen? Some of them are going to get back to you and some are not going to get back to you. And then what are you going to do? You're going to need to look at them. Did 3 of the 5 in that one segment get back to you? Now, 25 is not a lot. Right? Could be random, right? What do I say, right? Problems don't bother me, randomness does. So 25 is not a huge sampling, especially 5 apiece. But when you start getting into the 10 apiece, and you could start to see, gee, these people are always getting back to me, right? Small to medium businesses in this space really find my resume attractive. Okay, now you have your answer. What do you do the next week, right? You take this after you start the your subsection. You've evaluated your results, you get more info, and then what? You drop the pedal. You drop the pedal and you start sending more messages to those companies in that particular segment or segments, and then see what happens. And then what? And you iterate, and you keep going. And all you focus on is responses, right? When you send a networking message, your sole goal is to get a response. In this particular case, your sole goal is to gather data. Right, is to get enough responses to actually figure out what's happening so you can triangulate the direction you want to take. This is marketing 101, and you're all in a marketing and sales effort right now. Okay, so if you do that, if you do this and segment the companies, this will help you get unstuck with the direction that you want to take. If you just simply want to change companies, then focusing on these metrics, how many companies have I identified? How many people did I reach out to? How many relationships have I built? How many thoughtful emails did it take me to build these relationships, and how many interviews that I've gotten? All right, now I want to show you this in action. So we have this person. His name is Max. Max is a member of my job search coaching program, and he's also a member of my leadership coaching program, which basically means he has my undying love for life. Now, Max knows that I'm obsessed with statistics. So he got a job. He moved from Germany to Switzerland in 2021. And then he needed to move from that job and get another job in Switzerland in 2022. And he didn't have an EU passport. So Max had all kinds of issues. And Max, apparently on May 5th of last year, he sent me this email that was very, very long. And what I'm doing is I've cut it up for you. And I'm actually going to share exactly how he went through his search. But more importantly, I'm sharing this with you so that you could take away the sentiment and the odyssey that he went through and how he managed his emotions throughout the process. I couldn't think of a better way to illustrate this to you than to share this with you. I want to share some results from my recent search. It was one of the hardest and easiest searches I've ever done. Here was his challenges. So if you think you got it tough, this guy's a career changer. He's in his early 30s. He's in Switzerland because he previously moved from Germany, but he didn't have an EU passport. So in Switzerland, it's actually quite hard to get this. He needed to actually have a job by the beginning of January of last year. Otherwise, he was going to have to leave the country. And so he didn't basically have the right credentials, and he was on a clock. So what he did was he gave me the summary of what actually happened. So he started on January 1st, and he sent his first email. And by mid-April, so a dozen or so weeks later, he had accepted an offer. He'd gotten 2 job offers. He'd contacted nearly 100 people. 44 of them got back to him. So he had a 44% response rate that resulted in about a 1 in 4 engagement rate for interviews. So he ultimately made it all the way through 4 recruitment processes, and he got 2 job offers, and he got a 38% increase in pay. All right, so what did he do? He said, all right, he said, the statistics helped improve my confidence. There were times where I had high response rates and times where I had low response rates, but he kept basically, and in his term he used applications, but he ultimately was sending emails, which I know and have clarified. But he got awareness, so he really was understanding how this stuff worked. And he said, and it was so great to see that he had a long list of things going, because when he would get frustrated, he knew he had more options, but he just kept going even if he was getting rejections immediately. Then what he said is he made an assumption about, or organizations that were so obsessed. Actually, I should take that back. He made this point about organizations that were so obsessed that would just respond to him, hey, we have no role at the moment, or you need to put your resume in the applicant tracking system, or whatever it is. He wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, and he didn't get bummed out, even though he knew he was an exact fit. He said, but because there was a balance of other people who were equally as nice, who were willing to help him. And he also said that, he previously, in his iteration in 2021, when he was actually job searching, he said, I reached out to so many people. I got to know over 60 HR people and recruiters from 62 different companies. So these are seeds he planted. He ended up getting a job with not one of those companies, but he responded to a chunk of those. He said, and all the people he responded to in 2022 when he was job searching again had responded back to him. And even if they were simply giving him some time on their calendar to do a little informational exchange, he used that opportunity to gather research about those company types to figure out their organizational structures, because he knew that that would mirror in other companies like them. He said, and actually one lady from an IT consultancy in Switzerland actually said, I'll forward your resume to all of the heads inside our organization. And he said, and wouldn't you know it, that was one of the companies that had the stamp on their website that says you must apply via our applicant trashing system. I guarantee you, no applicant trashing system is going to circulate your resume to all the industry heads. Okay, so assumptions are not your friends. Just keep moving. Okay, forget about the ATS. The company was very stubborn. I should apply online. He would make a judgment call and a decision that if an organization said that to him, he knew that organization wasn't for him. He just said, I'm going to move on. And the next thing was I kept pounding this into his head. Do not make any assumptions. Assumptions are not your friends in anything that you do in your life, especially when it comes to job searching and especially when it comes to salary negotiation. So he assumed getting a work permit in Switzerland was going to be rough. And as a matter of fact, so too did a lot of the HR people in organizations. And I almost guarantee you that these HR people that assumed it was going to be difficult probably never had to interact and try to get one of these, right? They just heard it from their friends, or they assumed from somebody that they spoke with quickly that it was going to be a problem. He said, but as it turned out, his background and what he did, which was not extraordinarily unique, in my opinion, apparently was deemed by the state as exceptional, so he didn't even need to get a work permit, right? And he also said that, when people didn't respond the first time, he gave them the benefit of the doubt, assumed they were busy, and just followed up with them, and that was the case. Now, he also said, here's a little plug for those in my job search coaching program, if you have access to my illustrious and very valuable and effective role definition session where I give you the grid of how to lay out how you want to make your counter argument for salary negotiation. He actually did that quite effectively, so it's in there for people who are in the boot camp. And then he said, and this I love, finally, I think it was good that I was stubborn enough to keep listening to what Andy says despite all the challenges and opinions from other people. So you can see the emotions that he was going through, but what did he do? He stayed consistent. He was locked in. He didn't let any of the assumptions deter him. He didn't let any of the responses deter him. And he just kept going because he was focused on, I'm adding more companies. I'm calling more people. It's okay to call people you know. It is. They count, right? I want you to network. You have a great percentage of getting your job that way, so why not do that? Well, those 62 people that he inventoried that were in HR from companies he reached out to before, those count, right? So you're laying the foundation for future endeavors, and this job search, I said it's nothing more than an opportunity, right? To learn about companies, to meet people you don't know, put them in your phone book, right? Practice the skills of reaching out. You're not just practicing the skills, you're conditioning this. You're conditioning this, your psyche, your self-esteem, too, that I will. Everything you do all day long should be feeding your self-esteem and your level of confidence. And getting in that cadence of that 3 each day is going to do that. And if you focus on these metrics, just to kind of recap this, focus on the companies, run your search this way. Why? You can control it. There are no limits. You can reach out to people. Why? Because people are the ones who give you the job. The system doesn't give you the job, and you can control it. You never need to stop, right? But when you don't see an open position at a company that you want to go, what do? You stop. That's limited thinking. Don't do that. Right? How many relationships are you building? That's a function of how many emails or phone calls you're making if you actually use the phone, right? Kind of thing. That will lead to interviews, and it only takes one. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. If you are here with me live, we're going to the Q&A. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. And always, if you enjoyed this, smash the like button, send a message to YouTube, share it with your friends, and I hope you're subscribed to the channel. All right, see you soon.